playtime is over. Get your Prepared Mind merchandise at thepreparedmind.club. Help keep free speech free and spread the word about the need to prep. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel on Patreon. We have had some non-typical days, don't you think? And you know, speaking of typical, or rather non-typical, preppers. We're 5% of the population. We're pretty non-typical ourselves, so you'd think that we would be the ones who see between the lines. So what am I talking about? Starting late last week, we started seeing some Dow Jones average decline, right? Started coming down. 665 point something or another percent, right? But 666. If you round it to the nearest number, the market dropped 666 points. It was interesting that that was talked about, but only lightly in passing. But you know, can they orchestrate that? Well, they can do anything they want. They can make up whatever numbers they want. Did they do that on purpose is the question. Now, I always say, as a prepper, looking at the world we live in, right, this crazy world that could explode anytime, you know, explode in madness and chaos. Who are we dealing with? We're dealing with a bunch of megalomaniacs that are in charge, the powers that be. We're dealing with incompetent government. And we're dealing with people who have their heads either in the sand or up their asses. So, when something like 666 is how the end of the day comes out, and it's a big tumble. You could call it the start of a crash. It was very big. You look at that and go, that can't be a coincidence. Because it followed right on the heels of the release of the FISA memo. Now, nothing happened with the Super Bowl, and that's great, right? That's great. But there were some other things, right? A couple of train wrecks, and we talked about those in the earlier videos. But we open up Monday morning yesterday, or rather Monday, and today's Wednesday morning. We open up with the stock market tumbling, and it tumbled a lot on Monday. You know, it was a big crash. I would start to call that a crash. So we've had 3 days of decline that are accelerating. 250, 666, and then, you know, well over 1,000. And the rest of the world came down with it. I don't see that as a coincidence. I see it as having the potential. Now, what convinces me it absolutely is orchestrated is that today, or rather Tuesday's trading day, the market went back up significantly. How is that possible? If there's going to be a correction in the market, it needs to stay down. It shouldn't just bounce right back up, and 500 plus points is not a dead cat bounce on the stock market. This is what I like to call a warning. The powers that be, the banks, right, the Wall Street executives, right, the central banking authorities, they can control things. And I think this was a message being sent to Trump. And for those of us with ears to hear, right? Those of us who are non-typical. You're a prepper because you're paying attention. So we need to really look at what happened. How can the market come down so much and then come right back up? It was a warning. What could that warning mean? Mr. Trump and your administration, including your takeover, right, of the Attorney General's office, cleaning out the Department of Justice, which is the gateway to all the other filth out in the federal government. The Department of Justice and the FBI are covering up all of the filth, the corruption, right, the embezzlement, if you will, the insider trading, all of their crimes. Trump, back off or we're going to take this down. Train wreck or train crash with the garbage truck, and then a freight train hitting a passenger train just doesn't happen in this world. Those are messages. It's a big fat warning to Trump. Now, does Trump care? Is Trump going to stop? I have to say, I hope he doesn't, because you cannot bargain with these people. You cannot cut a deal. You can't get them to go away voluntarily. This is do or die time. But this is a warning. Now, what are the next days that are coming that Trump needs to worry about? We've got some events coming up. One of them is the debt ceiling. Right? Trump has to deal with money. If we have a debt ceiling crisis, a government shutdown, we could have more stock market crashing all the way to the bottom. Wherever that bottom is, wherever the powers that be want to allow it. Right? Because they're the ones who are truly controlling it. Because they've got their insiders. They didn't just have the FBI, you see. They have everything. They've got dirty deeds and dirty people everywhere. And all they have to do is flip a switch. Boop, right? Bad things happen. What else is coming? The Olympics. The Winter Olympics that are being held over, in South Korea. We've got the potential for World War III. And the Olympics are always a huge, huge terror threat. Terror attack threat. So we talked about for last weekend, the Super Bowl. But the Olympics isn't just America. Olympics is the world. Our stock market isn't just the United States of America. When America went down, the rest of the world came down. It's not just America. It's not just the Super Bowl. It's the entire world. It's the Olympics. The Olympics would be a much bigger statement to make a terror attack, false flag style, if Trump doesn't want to back off. If those that support him don't want to back off. And I'm pretty sure that Vladimir Putin is laughing his ass off. And he's probably also very concerned. He's laughing because, right, Americans are waking up. The government is waking up and going, what is going on? We've got bad things happening. So I think that the stock market was allowed to come down, and then they've corrected it. That's a warning. We've had a couple train incidents. Some big worries about the Super Bowl. Big worries. Nothing happened, so you and I don't think about it. But the law enforcement that was out there was very aware of every real threat. So the false flag threat is now the Olympics. Now, what is the ransom? The ransom is you are going to stop the investigations, Mr. Trump, or you're not going to get your debt ceiling. You're not going to get your finances. You're not going to get your budget the way you want it. We're going to make that an issue for you. Now, what's important here is awareness. There's nothing you and I can do about it. Right? Maybe 30 or 40 years ago, you could write a letter to your congressman and say, are you aware of this shit? What's going on? And you might get his attention. Right? But we can't really do anything anymore. Now the best thing we have, our best defense, is awareness. And of course, being a prepper. We need to have, food, shelter, water, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. We need to have those things. We need to have a plan for what is going on right now. We're always supposed to be ready, but when the tension level comes up, when the potential level comes up, you need to be a little bit more ready, right? You need to have things a little closer at hand, just because you don't know what's going to go on, right? And the same goes for money. I put this out in yesterday's video. Things are coming down. Wells Fargo Bank was one of the ones that was in trouble. Now today, everything looks much rosier. Everyone's like, whew, that was close, but we're okay now. And they put their heads right back in the sand, or as I said earlier, right back in their ass. Whatever caused it to come down before can happen again. Now, if everyone says, John, it's fear porn to say Trump is the cause and the deep dark state and the big bad wolf, you're just blaming that. All of this is organic. Natural. Well, if it's organic and natural, what I have to ask is, how the hell does the market recover 1/3 of what it lost over the last couple of days in one day? If the market's coming down, if there's that much uncertainty, the volatility index is way up, right? There's a lot of concern. There's a lot of trading going on. People selling out, selling off. If that's really going on, it shouldn't have bounced back up, right? So we're still in big trouble. Nothing else changed. Right? We still have an economic engine that's running on one cylinder, basically meaning it's dying, it's done. The train, which has had good inertia, is slowing down and it's running out of energy and it's going to come to a stop. The economic train is done. Right? They're going to give us tax cuts. We're going to have a little more money. As Americans, we're going to start paying off our debt because credit card debt, personal debt is higher than ever. And we're not making any money. They tried saying that real wages increased last year for the first time in 30 years. Well, if that be the case, it's not enough, right? Because then if they want to admit that finally, that real wages basically in relation to the cost of goods and the cost of living, if it hasn't come up, we've been going into debt further and further and further. And the evidence supports it. You can find the charts that prove it. What it comes down to is we've got, once again, a tiny reprieve from what we know to be inevitable. Shit is going to hit the fan. The economy's coming down. We're getting closer to war. The powers that be, whether they're in charge of nations or banks or corporations, when it gets like this, they push for war. Because war confuses everything. They get economic reset. They get to jump from one country to another and reestablish themselves. A lot of people believe that that next country a lot will go to is China. And in fact, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that they've already moved there, since all the factories are there. You know, we as Americans, we're going to be left with a really big bill. Right? We've got $20 trillion in debt in this nation. $20 trillion in debt. And they're talking about adding even more. Another $1.5 trillion this year alone. You know, we can't afford that. So what we need to understand is there's going to be a financial, economic, banking crisis. So we're saying first thing you have to do is, of course, have that food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. You need to have all those things ready. You need to have awareness, but you also need to have cash on hand. How much is up to you? What your bills are is up to you. And something else I kind of talked about is, why would you leave your money in Wall Street if times are so uncertain? Now let's say you've got $100,000 in Wall Street, and if you were to take it out, you're going to pay $10,000 in taxes because it was a tax-deferred investment. If we have a 50% market crash, you're going to have stocks that are worth 50,000 instead of 100. Your net loss is 50,000. If you pull that money out now, 100,000, and pay 10% tax, you only lose 10, but you're holding 90. And then the other thing is, do you leave that money in a bank that can be confiscated? Right? You don't have a lot of choices anymore. Do you see how we're pushed into a corner? Literally. From the right side, we're getting a bunch of shit. From the left side, you're getting a bunch of shit. And then there's a steamroller in the middle, and it's pushing us into this tiny corner. You don't have a lot of options left. You know, the deep state, the dark state, the powers that be, the Illuminati, they are also, in a fashion, in a sense, pushed into a corner. You see, every year that passes, the top 1%, which is the mega powerful, are making more and more of a percentage of the GDP, the gross domestic product, right? That tiny bit at the top of the pyramid is making the bulk of the money. This happens every single time. They take more and more and more of the money through their greed, and they see the systems coming to an end. And so they think in a mad dash of greed and stupidity that if they take all of it, they'll be okay and they'll have enough to make it to the next system. You see, but what are they doing? They're robbing from you and me, and they're making it even worse. They're making it even worse. And so what do? They give us a tax cut. Right? They give us a tax cut and they say, hey, this will make it better. And all you do is go out and spend more money or pay off the debt you owe them, and they get more money yet again. It doesn't fix the problem. If tax credits in the system we have now worked, it would have healed us after what? After the tech crash back in 2001. When Bush gave out all those tax cuts, yeah, people were spending money left and right and also going into debt more. But they thought they were doing great because the stock market started to go back up and real estate as well. You see, everyone else out there isn't paying attention. They think everything's fine. As a prepper, you see it. The same thing goes for war. Now, I'm a United States Marine. There's lots of Marines, soldiers, there's lots of sailors and airmen out there, and we're told that we are the ones that kick ass. We've got the most powerful military and the best technology. Right? And we're gung-ho and we're willing to die for God, country, and family. What we believe in. War is coming. And other nations, their people think the same things. Now, I'm not denigrating the U.S. military, and I'm not saying that they're a bunch of effeminate wimps. They are ass kickers, life takers, and heartbreakers. But here's the deal. Those countries over there and those countries over there that want to fight with us, they have the same thing going. And I can't remember what F it is. It is F-35 or F-32, whatever that jet is that we paid, I don't know how many billions for. It doesn't even fly. It can't fly. It's broken. If that's the height of our technology in aerial aircraft, then it's a laughing stock and a joke. Because the one the Chinese have flies. Right? And our warships keep running into stuff. Or going blank. Are they being hacked? Are they being EMP'd by Russians and Chinese? Right? We're having setbacks. We're having problems with our military. If we get into a war, it's not going to be like fighting Iraq. It can't be that way. Right? Just because you're in 8th grade and you beat up all the kindergartners doesn't mean that if an 8th grader comes up to you or a 7th grader that you're going to win the fight. See, that's the arrogance of the American mindset. If we get into a war, it's going to be a lot different than what we think as America in general. And once again, I'm not putting down the American military. Right? I was a member of it. I know what we were capable of. Right? At the same time, we have to understand the capability of the enemy. And that goes not only for the military who wants to fight World War III with us, what we're being threatened with, what Trump is being threatened with. Right? We have to understand that our economic system is weakened. We have to understand that. It just comes down to ultimately just awareness. And that's what being a prepper is, aware and then taking the appropriate steps. Have some money, food, shelter, water, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. Have all that, please. This war has already started. It started right now. It's already going. The FISA memo was just another battle. But the war is on. Trump is at the head of the war on one side. Hillary is the other figurehead on the other. Or Obama. Think of them as generals, if you will. But this is a political war. This is an economic war. And covering everything is literal war, military conquest and destruction. All of this is being threatened. And it is all shit hits the fan. As a part of all of this, whether it's economic or political or even military, you throw into the middle of that cyber warfare. You throw into the middle interruptions in supply chains, meaning raw materials used for keeping everything going. And if one side wants to stop the other, what do? They can use cyber attacks, they can use EMPs, they can use chemical bombs, biological agents. They can cause, without any of those, civil unrest because of sleeper cells that are here in the United States, whether they're North Korean sleeper cells or Russian sleeper cells or ISIS cells or communist Antifa cells. All they have to do is be activated, and it is game on. In other words, it's Armageddon time. Please get ready. Shit is going to hit the fan at some point. Whether it's full-on Armageddon, put on your body armor and, put up the sandbags, or it could be at a shit hits the fan light with hot spots in different cities, Washington in turmoil, right? Maybe a few military skirmishes. That's the light side. But at the very least, this system is going to come down. It's going to come down. So this stock market crash was just one more little piece of the pie. It's not everything. And it's actually not just a little piece. It's a big piece. But I saw what happened because they slammed on the brakes, turned it around. That told me that was all orchestrated. The system is weak. The system can crash at any time. All they have to do is quit propping it up for a couple hours and it'll fall real quick. Comes Tuesday, they just push it right back and go, see, everything's fine. No worries. Send Trump that letter and tell him what we just did. Right? You can bet your ass that there's lots of threats. Like that little prick, Adam Schiff, California congressman, who's going to release a Democrat memo. In fact, I haven't even followed it. Who cares what it says? It's pablum. It's crap. It's designed to excite the Democrats who think that their people in Washington aren't fighting back. That's something that they'll believe, right? They'll swallow that tripe. But I'm not going to, because it is bullshit. Right? The people on their heels, the people backing up, the people in trouble are the deep state. They're the bad guys. They're the ones that want to destroy our world and remake it into the new world order. That's what they've always wanted. And we're right now at that fight between good and evil. Right? And all we can do, you and I, is get prepared. So please do that. If you need any help with that, go to thepreparedmind.club. C-L-U-B. At thepreparedmind.club, we have forums, we have videos, we have a store for buying things. We have everything that you need to get you started, get you down the road, fill in the gaps. But time is short, in my opinion. Don't forget, you also need to keep some cash on hand. Right? And of course, also, make sure you have self-defense. Because you don't know who your enemies are going to be. Because right now, we don't know who they are. It could be the guy that's your best buddy one day, and the next day, he's going to be your enemy. You need to be prepared and able to defend yourself. You don't have to be paranoid or stupid. You just have to be aware. Because chance favors. The prepared mind is yours. At the end of this day, right, I'll have a lot more information. I'll be talking about something a little bit differently. But I think there's going to be some big action coming our way. So get ready. Be prepared. Godspeed to you all. Semper Fi. I'll talk to you soon.